a publicly traded company that has us listed as number 260 on the Fortune 500. So I think we fall more in the category of XXL.
Definitely the XSL. So you can see the size differentials right off the bat, the three companies here. Beverly, how many people do you have in your office?
So we range anywhere from 6 to 12 people, depending on which way the wind's blowing. Right now we're at 6 and we're growing to 10, So
from 6 to 10 to 100 to 50,000, so a wide variety of...
I can caveat the 50,000 though, because I want to be clear, we're not 50,000 architects. We are made up of engineers, constructors, so we own 2 construction companies. We also have architects, and when you look at the architectural practice proper, we're really about 11,000 worldwide and about 4,500 in the United States.
That's it? Just 11,000? That's all?
Yeah, just 11,000.
Ah, you guys are tiny.
And in Florida, we have about 100 plus architects.
Incredible. So our conversations today are going to tackle various issues. We're going to ask the various firm sizes how they dealt with certain things, and hopefully get engagement from the audience to ask questions as well from the panel discussion. The first thing we're going to talk about is the big changes. How have your companies dealt with the pandemic and its resultant work from home, flexible schedule processes, and how have you been able to maintain your quality, your design rhythm, your collaboration? How have you tackled those issues, and what are some of the things that the audience can learn from you in terms of those ideas? I'll start with Beverly from the small firm perspective. How did it impact you?
So what I didn't mention is we do primarily institutional and higher education work. So as a small firm, we're very fortunate to fall back on the experience that we brought when we started the firm in 2016. So we had to adapt very, very quickly to the demands of our higher education clients primarily. And for those of you who recall, there was some debate about Zoom versus Teams, and a lot of higher institutions didn't want to use Teams because of the implication of Chinese involvement. So for a small firm, it was hard to quickly adapt to all of those platforms because we had to do it homogenously with our staff. But we immediately went to completely online. Everyone went home. We set everybody up. Luckily we had our infrastructure set up. So it's pretty seamless. And we actually experienced a huge spike in productivity because people realized, wow, I don't have the commute. But that productivity really took a nosedive towards the first year. So we've gone back to completely no hybrid. We're 100% back in studio, and our staff actually really appreciates it because they miss the synergy. We have an open studio environment, and they said that we really had like a brain drain, and getting back to the studio helped to cure that.
Hernan?
Yeah, very similar to what you said. You know, when the pandemic hit, you know, we all went home. But we quickly realized, you know, being a design firm, number one, we quickly realized in the design team that we had to figure out a way to get back somehow. So the design team was the first one that got back to the office, but we were lucky that a few years back when we opened our Tampa office, we had set an infrastructure with a VPN system. They all have to remote into our Orlando office. So having that in place really helped us getting everybody at home to be able to work and have a connection back to the office. 2 months before the pandemic, we moved into our brand new office in Orlando that then we had nobody in. That allowed us to essentially have great infrastructure in a brand new office to be able to facilitate everybody to have their own home office. Now the issue with that is you have everybody at home, culture's out the door, how are you going to maintain that? The knowledge in the office are in separate places, how are you going to mentor? So we quickly had to scramble and put in place an intranet or some sort of tool for our staff to be able to access knowledge, to be able to access best practices. And because of the markets that we are working in, which is healthcare, commercial, education, they're highly driven by best practice, lessons learned, as much as you guys may assume. So the intranet was something that we put together and really helped us to overcome that issue. Now we are back to a 2-a-day work week, 3 days at home, but those 3 days are optional, so some people still come in. 2 a day is 100% in the office, and it really helps us to get everybody back in the office, see each other, and really bring back what Hunt Brady's about, which is developing those friendships, developing that family environment that we have in the office, and that makes us unique. And that translates to what the clients perceive of us, right? Because our clients now, they're more they're a lot more in tune with what we do, and they can read right through a bad set of drawings. They can read right through a meeting that is not going well, right? And they can read right through that culture that is being lost because of what we're all facing in our profession. So we're trying to figure out what the happy medium is in terms of how many days a week, but we think we're doing it the right way. And lastly, I think is, like I mentioned, is mentorship. We are in our office, we're always looking for that next generation of leadership. And so this is really testing us, and hopefully we're doing it the right way, but we'll see how it goes.
To that point, Steve, if you look at how did your firm get impacted by the pandemic and work from home schedules, but how do you deal with the mentorship? How do you deal with that process in a hybrid environment?
So, I will say, I'll start by saying that we experienced the same conditions as everybody. When the pandemic hit, because we are global, we saw it coming. It was interesting to see on a personal level, to watch all the offices that we were working with slowly shut down and everybody being told to go home. So you can kind of watch the way it was going through which offices were closing. In terms of returning to work, we had to be very respectful of local conditions. There are offices in certain countries where they are still in somewhat of a lockdown phase, so there is no mandate universally across the board in terms of return to work. We try to have a program, we have a program that is called Freedom to Grow, and it's basically looks at flexibility in your personal life, flexibility in the workplace, being able to satisfy client needs, but also keeping a keen awareness on people's mental health, because we were very concerned about the isolation that people were feeling when they were at home, that they weren't being able to collaborate with teammates. And so we wanted to make sure that everyone's well-being was being looked after, and we took that very seriously. So in terms of the mentorship, we have a very extensive mentoring program. We have AECOM University, which is part mandatory training. We go through a lot of safety training because of the culture of who we are. We take a number of requisite courses on cybersecurity and things like that. But the one-on-one mentoring is always in the office. And so where we stand today, like Hernan, we're back to a kind of flexible work system. Our CEO says we are not a remote workforce, we are a flexible workforce. So the idea is that you come back to the office 3 days a week. We encourage Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with Friday and Monday as days that you can work from home. But the idea is that we have seen, like everyone, the ability to have informal conversations, the ability to just converse and see somebody is missing when you're on a computer screen. So we're hoping everybody starts coming back and starts to have those types of conversations.
How has your physical environment been challenged by the flexible spaces, flexible ideas of people coming, not coming? Like Hernan, we designed 2 offices that both opened, one in March of the pandemic and one in April of the pandemic, didn't get used for a year, brand new spaces. How have you addressed your physical spaces in this new world?
Well, I can start with that because we don't have a ton of office space. We were fortunate enough, we're not in Class A office space. We're a small firm. Steve and I bought 2 office condos that we renovated when we first started the firm, and we have our little break room. We have the big bullpen, a conference room, and we came back from the pandemic, and all of a sudden everyone's still on Zoom calls. And we're talking over each other. So you're going in this space, you're going in your car, and right? So we quickly adapted. We created a Zoom room. We brought in a lot of live plants to really enliven this space and make a more healthy, kind of vibrant atmosphere for staff. So for us, it's a little bit different because we don't have that kind of flexibility in space, but we've definitely made it work. We've found some really innovative technology elements that we're teaching our clients about. So we have this little dongle that I love, and you just stick it on the back of the TV and you hit Windows K and it projects automatically instead of having to connect all of the doodads. And so for us, and we're teaching clients that, and they're stunned that you can buy this $50 thing instead of a $2,000 AV system to do all the things that they do. So we've adapted pretty quickly, but it is hard when you're a small firm. Everyone has to do a little bit of everything, and we all have to learn together, because if one person is missing out of that cog, if the person who knows where the dongle is missing, you're in big trouble. So,
and I mean, from a physical environment standpoint, we kind of did it backwards, and it's kind of a funny thing, because we used to be in an office that our cubicles went up like 4 or 5 feet, and we were all like, the newer generation's comments was, feels like we're in AT&T here. We're not a collaborative environment. So then we moved to a new office where it's all open. And then COVID hit, right? So then we're like, whoa, what do we do? Now we're all open. So I think what we did do is we provided flexible spaces. We have phone rooms where people can go and have their own moment to kind of like look at drawings and collaborate maybe by themselves or with somebody else. And we also developed we call them these design components that are within the studio that allow us to kind of get around a table and collaborate away from our desks. And so that mitigates me standing behind somebody's shoulder and speaking loudly and disturbing the person next to you. But I think there's the COVID aspect, but then there's also, what did we really do this for? And we did that for mentorship. We did it so that people can hear from the person next to you the issue the other project's having. But then we quickly had to make sure that we addressed the whole COVID situation. So it's been something that we're managing along the process, but I think it's working. And again, it's part of the culture, is who we are as a Hunt Brady family, and we embrace it. So
you guys got to give me something unique to say. I go last, and I got to say.
You go first next time.
So for us, we have a whole group in various offices that are subject matter experts in kind of workplace strategies. We work with a lot of corporate clients to help them develop their own workplace environments. And so we've kind of tapped into that and looked at how we can build better spaces for the work that we do. And it varies, honestly, from office to office. We have a policy where really no one is assigned a private office. Every one of us, from CEO all the way down to the most junior person, has a similar size workstation. So we don't have enclosed offices. So one of the challenges that we're always facing is, how do you hold private conversations? How do you have phone calls that don't disturb your neighbors? And so we have focus rooms that are built all around the space that allow you to go and have those kind of more quiet times. And so we will begin to increase those across the offices. We're seeing that, the idea of flexible workspace may mean someone, for example, would prefer to drop their kids off at school and come into the office, say, at 10 o'clock. and they may work for 3 or 4 hours and then go home to pick the kids up from school and then continue to work in the evening. That's a scenario that we accept and work with. There are people who, honestly, in our office, weathered the pandemic by coming to the office every day from 7:30 to 7 o'clock. Never missed a day, never missed a beat, and that's just the way they work. And it was partly because they have a spouse who's also working from home, or they had poor internet connections. And so, until that was all flushed out, they just continued on business as usual. So a variety of different ways of doing things. We also embrace the idea of a hoteling concept. So some offices, no one has an assigned desk or a permanent seat. So when you come in the office, you can basically sit anywhere. Some of the offices have casual seating areas by the break area where you can go and work, and Wi-Fi runs throughout the office. So there's a variety of ways that we've been handling the workplace.
When I had to work from home, I had to work out of my son's bedroom, so I had the Avengers behind me, and it's kind of had the best Wi-Fi signal in the house. And then I worked towards buying a home with a nice, beautiful home office, and the pandemic is over, supposedly, and we're back to work. I'm like, I just got the office at home.
So I will corroborate that statement, because we were on a couple of AIA calls, and we were all cracking up because there's Avengers posters in the background. We're like, where are you? He's like, I'm in my kid's room.
Got good Wi-Fi.
And he's in pajamas bouncing on the bed. It was kind of hard to control him during the call.
I don't pay attention well. So circling back to the mentorship conversation, how do each of your firms tackle mentorship as a whole? Even after the pandemic, regardless of the pandemic, how do you tackle mentorship?
So, as a small firm, we started out, I was pretty fortunate. When I decided to leave my previous position, the larger firm that I work for asked me to stay on as an independent contractor for almost 2 years. And I happily did it at double my rate, so that really helped to get our firm off the ground. And so we were able to hire people right away and made a conscious decision that we were going to be a teaching studio. And that came from something that was encultured in me. I don't know if Michael Halflentz is still here, but Michael Halflentz was my professor in college, and that kind of culture that was instilled in that environment, I carried over from also teaching. And so it's one of the joys that I have in our small practice, that we get to grow very organically. There's been a lot of talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm very proud to say I'll be the first Asian American female president of AIA Florida in its 110-year history. But that said, it's very important to me to be recognized for the work that we do, because we do really good work. We're very conscientious about the work we do. Our commitment and mission statement hasn't changed since the beginning. It's, we believe every project should tell a story, regardless of the size, scale, scope, or budget of that project. And we really infuse that into all of the young emerging professionals that we hire, and we're very deliberate in hiring young emerging professionals. Mm-hmm. That organic nature of recruitment, we actually have people that come to us and say they want to work at B. Frank Studio, because I think part of it is having a woman mentor. So it was a joke. One time we did an interview for a continuing service contract, and we had 10 employees at the time, and 8 of us were women, and of all races and cultures, and we finally got another boy. So we jokingly put kind of a dash line and said, it's a boy, because it wasn't for lack of trying. It was, I think we became a magnet. And so our mentorship, my staff likes to say, I in particular, my partner's the softie, but I'm the one that I say I'm tough. And when I interview people, I say I'm not easy to work for or with, right? Because I have high, and my staff will quickly say, no, she has high expectations, very high expectations. So that mentorship comes with the understanding that I have high expectations, but you're gonna learn a lot. And so regardless of whether you decide to stay here, in talking with Don Yoshino the other day, one of the things he mentioned to me was he felt it was important that you go. You basically kick them out of the nest and go work for other firms, get other experience. And Don made the comment, it's okay, they may go and they may come back. And so I think that's how I treat the mentorship process, and just hope that they learn it's all about health, safety, and welfare, and we can do great design.
No, those are really, really great points. I think for us it's very somewhat similar in the sense that I'll start by talking about our leadership. Our leadership, our principals are all working on projects. And one of the things that was evident to me when I came to Hunt Brady about 13 years ago, when I was fortunate enough to have Chuck and Mauricio hire me, it was that I was coming to a firm where I was not a number, where I was going to be an individual that they were going to invest in me. Having leadership be part of every project and principals and every single client exposure allows us to witness and see the growth of each of our team members. And therefore, although we don't force licensure, we encourage it. We want to make sure that it comes from them, it comes from the individual, that they express that want to be a licensed architect, and then we're all in with them. We provide anything they need. We'll pay for their exams, like as many of the firms do. But we want to make sure that number one, it comes from them. Although Chuck did put me on the spot one day, and it did make me push for licensure, and I really appreciate that, Chuck. And at times, you know, there's not always the right project, or the right project doesn't show up at the right time for that individual's career. So one of the things that we do at Hunt Brady is that we encourage you to go out, right? Go out and be in the community, get engaged with AIA. I mean, it's right here, it's for us. Embrace it and be part of it. Legislate, go to Tallahassee, see really what the profession is about. That was one of the things that really helped me and others in our firm. And as a firm, we're very proud to say that we've always had somebody on the board level, locally, state, and regionally, and we're always trying to be advocates for our profession. Giving the individuals in our firm that ability to be in other platforms, in other boards, in community engagements, it really helps us to see where they're going to shine. A lot of times, we think they're going to be a PM, we think they're going to be a designer, but they're not. That's not their wish. And so we need to really watch and witness how they want to grow and how they want to take their career so that we can tailor that mentorship. Because really, sometimes the champion that you have in the firm is really not the right one for you. And so it's a discovery process for us that we really like and we enjoy. And I've been fortunate to have great mentors like Chuck and Ronnie and other people in my career. And I think that has been the subtle things that I've learned along the way from people like them that have pushed me, and that's what we look for.
So we take great pride in the fact that our people are our priority. We really want to make sure that everybody who works at AECOM succeeds. And as I mentioned before, we try to look at the whole person. So we look at, mental well-being as a critical component of how you're able to do your job effectively, how you can communicate with others around you, and how you can interface with clients. We also take career development very seriously as well, and we do the same kind of program where there are numerous tracks that any one of us can take in our career. And so making sure that you kind of find that direction. And one of the things that we work very hard on doing is, in order to move up through the firm, there's the traditional path of becoming a project manager, moving into principal and so on. And, and then there's the corporate titles of, associate, principal, associate vice president, senior vice president. And if there's sometimes a thinking that if you are on a technical track or you're a design track, you won't ever get to be, that there's only one path to move up in the organization. So we're very conscious of making sure that the opportunity to grow within the firm and advance is equal amongst all the various tracks and specialties that you can have within the firm. We have a great program. We call it GP2W, Great Place to Work. It didn't take much to figure that one. And it does incorporate a lot of social activities. We've had some bowling nights. We've had some, birthday celebrations in the office. We're always talking about anniversaries. And again, trying to create a community where people feel like this is, a great place to work. So we've now started a new mentorship program, which is essentially two-way mentorship. So we have, obviously there's the senior person mentoring junior people and trying to help them up through their career. But we also are now instituting the program where senior people can learn from junior people, and to see someone from a different generation and their view on the world is sometimes very enlightening, and you never really see things the way others see it. And so making sure that you kind of embrace other people's opinions and thoughts really go a long way to kind of, again, creating a dialogue and a collaborative environment. And then I'll say the last, we are now piloting a global workplace program where we are taking from each region 2 of the best and brightest, and they are going to be offered the opportunity to go work anywhere in the world for 6 months. And that would be supported through the company. And so a global exchange program is kind of a new direction we're trying to take. So you have an opportunity, if you want to work in Hong Kong, you can do that for 6 months.
Do you guys have any recommendations for the audience as far as, if you have their own firms, small, medium, and large, what would you recommend from a mentorship perspective? What programs should they do? How would you offer ideas for tackling that?
I'm going first this time. So, I guess this is more going to be, my experience and the way I like to approach things. It all starts with a conversation. You really have to take the time to sit down with staff and have an honest conversation about what is it you like about coming to work, what do you not like about coming to work. If I'm your supervisor, am I messing up? Am I not paying attention to something? Please always, give the feedback and talk about it, honestly and openly. And I think that that's where you can learn a lot about each other and really start to kind of have those conversations where you can guide people in a meaningful way. And then I also think what's really important is to take a risk. We have, again, like many of us, some shortage in the workforce, and so we're trying to fill positions, and so why not give someone a stretch goal? Let them take on a responsibility, let them take on an opportunity that they may not be ready for, and know that you're going to have to put in extra time to help them succeed along the way. And so I think that that's a great way to mentor folks and give some guidance in terms of direction. And the other piece that we always talk about is you have to be actively training your replacement. If you're moving up through the organization, there has to be someone who's going to take your spot. So you have to identify that person, whether it's just internally or externally, and let them know that they're grooming to be your replacement, and work towards helping them sit in your seat someday and do a better job than you did when you were sitting there.
Sure. Yeah, very, very well said. I think just to add to that is getting to know that person at an individual level. A lot of times And we all kind of, we see that talent and we're just thinking business. But I think we need to see that talent and think of that person. What's their reality? What is their family environment? What are they facing on a day-to-day basis? Because maybe that's what takes them over that hump. Because a lot of times we're like, man, there's something just missing about this person. It'll just take them to the next level. But how do I get them there? And so, to me, I put it back on leadership in the office, and more so look at yourself as coaches. How are you going to coach that person? How are you going to be that professional coach to take them to the next level? But you got to dig deep. It's not just when they walk into your office. It's going to lunch with them. It's investing in something that they are interested in. Maybe it's a sport. Maybe it's a hobby. But it's how do I get to know that person so I can help them during the tough times? Some people seek it and some people don't. And the people that don't are the ones that you got to go after if you really see potential. And like you said, is coaching that next generation of leaders for your firm. If not, we know what's going to happen to your firm. So how do you continue that legacy, and that when you leave, that next generation of leaders can take that firm and not leave it the way you left it, but take it to that next level of success. That's what's going to make you proud as a coach, and is not to stay at the level that it is when you left.
So again, as a small firm, part of the mentorship process in our studio is everybody does a little bit of everything. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, you're going to do bathroom details for however long. So our staff gets to work on proposals, they come to interviews, they see us being vulnerable, and I think that it's very important for them in terms of mentorship to see all of the different risks that we have to take, and know that part of growth is risk and failure, and we learn from our mistakes. So it's okay to make mistakes, but how do you recover from mistakes? It's okay that, and again, you make mistakes, clients will expect you're going to make mistakes, but it's not, oh, well, I have this excuse or that excuse. It's what are you going to do to make it better, right? So that's part of our whole process. Even though we're a small firm, we pay for everyone to study and take the ARE. We pay for everyone's AIA membership. We give them 40 hours a year to volunteer their time for anything that's important to them. So whatever is important in the community, we give them that opportunity. We bought them kayaks so that they can, we're very close to the water, they can go out kayaking, borrow the office kayaks. So we do a lot of things to build culture. We pick up the garbage. I mean, we all take out the garbage. We have to clean the sink. We have to clean the bathroom. I mean, it's part of being a small firm. And there's a great book called The Culture Code. And one of the chapters is picking up the trash. I will never be on a campus or somewhere, if I see trash on the ground, I pick it up. It's part of leadership. So we talk to them about what it takes to be a good leader. And I know that some people don't like the term throw them out on the deep end, but in a way we do, but we're their flotation device, right? We're there to help, but we're also there to make sure that we do it with integrity, we build trust, and we build commitment. So it didn't answer your question about do we have a program. I guess we're doing our own kind of program, but we give them opportunities to say, we have one staff member that's interested in coding. If you're interested in coding, let's help you find a program, we'll pay for it. Go do it, if that's what you're interested in. If you like writing specifications like I do, and you want to be involved in CSI, we'll pay for your CSI membership. Whatever it is that you want to do, we try to help them do that.
So pivoting a little bit in the conversation now, talking about practices that partner, and being medium, large, small firms, we've all been involved with different kind of partnerships through our business careers for various reasons. How do you approach the partnership process? And this is something, again, what are the takeaways for the audience when you're looking at a partnership with firms, beyond the obvious of whether it's politically connected or whatever, beyond that, how do you find that synergy to bring two cultures together for a pursuit, and what should the audience be looking for when they look for partnerships? So I'll start with Hernan.
Sure. So, being that, we are a design firm, but we're also very technical in the way that we do things. So, we like to think that we're very complete in the way that we approach our projects. So partnerships for us are not something that we typically seek, but if the partnership is something that is going to teach us about a new market, or we're going to learn and we're going to gain something, we entertain that. The last one that we did is a Winter Park Library in Orlando with David Ajay, which was a great project. It re-energizes the office. We're working with a great architect that we're going to learn a lot from. And so we take a very humble approach to working with him, listening, and because if you do decide to engage at that level where you become the architect of record, you got to have that attitude, right? You have to make sure that you're embracing their design, but also it's things that we learn from that, right? If you're the design architect, you have to make sure that contracts are there in the right manner, because you can get looped into a process that essentially you may be in for a lot of SDs, and then the contract is something that you probably wouldn't have signed. And then on the other hand, you're the architect of record. You may be in the loop for a design that is going to eat you up in terms of hours, and you have to be very careful from a financial standpoint. But from a learning experience for the firm, we do it when it makes sense for us. And that's just our approach to things. But one thing that we are very careful about is that we do not surrender any phase of the project. When we do it, if we're the design architect, we're heavy in the beginning, and we light up towards the end to construction administration, but we don't let it go. And if it's the other way around, we essentially just flip that engagement in terms of the percentages. But that is something that is essential to us. And the reason that is very important is because we are not a one-hit wonder to a client. We want to make sure that we create a relationship with that client, and that they get to know us, and that in the future they come back. But if we let go of that project, we don't want to be the one pointing the finger. We want them to see us as we are their architect and we are the owner of that project, no matter what our role is in that project.
So we have a very small client base, but I'm very proud of the fact that the client base we've developed is based on a lot of repeat work. And having listened to your presentation earlier about communication, I think one of the things that we look for in partnership, whether it's consultants or the potential to team with larger firms to pursue projects, is there cultural alignment? And the reason why that's important to us is, as a smaller firm, we're typically seen as the quote-unquote local. And the relationships that we've built are critical to maintain. So we are really concerned about larger firms coming in and hurting that relationship that we took so many years and so much trust to build. So when we ask clients what our differentiator is, I'm shocked, but not, to hear that it's you listen. And it's that says a lot, right? Because they can experience larger firms coming in and they just don't listen. Especially in Florida, we have so many unique things happening, especially with our codes and our wind mitigation, building envelope, et cetera. And if you're not listening to your quote-unquote local, all trust is lost. So we look for good soft skills. We were fortunate enough recently, there were many pursuits with one of our clients, and we had 7 really award-winning national firms that pursued us to team with to go after projects. And it was amazing. It was reversed. We were interviewing all of these firms to decide who we were going to partner with. So that was that was really inspiring, interesting, and our staff was pretty like, wow, this is kind of cool, right? But ultimately, it's who can we maintain trust with, who's going to listen to us, not come in with a cape and say they're there to save the day. So that's what we look for in partnership.
Is that how you dealt with that experience? You found the one that you trusted the most?
We found the one that we felt like was the best cultural alignment. We didn't get the project. We actually came in last place, but we built a really good relationship with them in the end. And I think we felt like it was worth the risk, and we took a risk even in the whole approach to the project. But we've built a good relationship to potentially move forward with that firm. From that experience, another competitor actually contacted us afterwards to team up on a couple projects. So I think just the experience of building those relationships and not ignoring the people in the room, we actually made a point to go introduce ourselves to the other people in the room.
So for us, when it comes to partnerships, it's always first and foremost about how can we best serve the client? How do we satisfy their need and what their expectation is for a particular project or program? So if we can't offer the answer that they're looking for, that's when we have to reach out and establish partnerships. We have a very strong ESG and EDI program within our firm, so when we're looking for partners, we're not just trying to satisfy MBE or WBE requirements that the RFQ or RFP states. We're trying to build those relationships with smaller upcoming firms and giving them opportunities to work on projects that they may never get exposure to. And also because we have, whole groups of people who are responsible for, project management, scheduling, how you deal with the construction activities. It exposes these smaller firms to, or different firms to those experiences that they may not see. For us, an example is we were just finishing up construction on Logan Airport, the new terminal building up in Boston, and there were several architectural teams that were involved in that project because these things are just so big. You need to have the diversity of the project team available.
How do you deal with some of the challenges when you do have a partnership in place? What lessons learned can the audience take from you as far as overcoming challenges? You're in a partnership, you have a project, and something's not going well. How do you deal with that from a business perspective, from all angles?
Honesty. I think, once again, for us, if we're not honest with our consultants or partners, that's, even though it's painful, we work through the pain to make sure that we don't risk the relationships we're building. And we recently even had an interview, and one of the things that we said in the interview is we're going to make mistakes, but it's the way in which we handled those with grace, with fortitude, with honesty that's going to set us apart, and that's our commitment to you every time. So regardless of whether it's a consultant or whether we're a sub-consultant to a larger firm, that's what we bring.
Yeah, I think from the beginning there, and it was kind of mentioned, right? There has to be a clear alignment in culture, and that's what's going to get you through the hurdles of the tough times during the challenges of that project. I didn't personally work on the Winter Park Library, but I know of the challenges that the team faced, and I know that there were tough conversations amongst our leadership and their leadership, but it was always in the best interest of the client, and that's one thing that we can never lose sight of, that this is not a personal thing, that this is a project-focused thing, because in the end, that's why we are coming together. We're coming together to bring a project to a client, to a community, to serve our people, and to serve the people that will be there as part of that project, that will inhabit that project. So I think it's always to make sure that the cultures are aligned, and you identify that from the beginning of that joint venture. so that when challenges arise, that you can overcome them. And I think, we can all kind of assume what those are. Sometimes they're financial, sometimes it's fees related, sometimes it's, we're over budget and you've over designed this, and whichever side you're on, you have to be able to overcome that. And like you would in your own house, in your own firm, you need to do that with the other team in the same manner.
Yeah, very, very similar for us. We're all people, right? We've heard from everyone, there's mistakes that happen, and it's how you fess up to those mistakes and how you deal with them and address them in front of the client, and you don't shriek away from that responsibility. Goes a long way in building that trust with them and making sure that you don't do it again. One way that we really try to mitigate as much of that mistakes or challenges that occur on projects is pre-project planning. I mean, we all have to go about how we're foreseeing what obstacles may be in front of us and addressing them before they happen, and that helps. I've always said it's like setting up dominoes. You see them all on those videos where they kind of hit the one domino and it goes through the whole thing. That's a project, right? That's the life of a project. If you set the dominoes up in the right order and you hit that one at the start gate, it all falls nicely and you have a successful project. If you don't set it up properly in the beginning, you hit that first domino and it kind of just all falls apart. So, having the right project plan, having kind of everybody on the team subscribe and help to develop that plan, I think goes a long way to mitigating those challenges along the way. And it includes all your consultants and anybody that you're working with.
One example, we did something with a partnership plan. We actually created a partnership plan where we outlined what are all the big challenges of the project, from geotechnical issues to permitting issues. We actually outlined them all as a partnership. So we'd all hear and see, oh, this is going to be a problem, this is going to be an issue, and we had a collective understanding going into the project. These are the potential bumps in the road that could impact our ability to perform. So we just had an open dialogue about those issues, and we tried to create a risk management plan. What's our risk register? To take a page out of the contractor's book, what's the risk register for these potential issues? And that allowed us, from a design, we had some flowing capes that were going to come save the day. We had some folks we brought in the door that we were able to connect and say, okay, these are going to be real life issues that can't be swept away. They have to be dealt with early on. So that's another idea, to bring a partnership plan together, look at those big issues, outline them so that your partners are all on the same page early, and that helps that honest conversation happen.
Ignacio, I think that underscores the value of architects and architecture, that as the orchestra leader for any project, thinking through those things and anticipating things that could happen ahead of time. I think those are values that we all bring, hopefully, to our clients. And I know we try to do that and anticipate things that the consultants may not, because everybody's super busy right now. And things may fall through the cracks, but if we're over analyzing or anticipating those things that may happen, as you're saying, it definitely seals why architects are important and why what we do is so important.
Mm-hmm. How are we doing on time? Okay, Beverly, can you talk a little bit about the small business assistance programs that exist currently? For the majority of our members are small businesses, even though we are some big boys in the room, so to speak. Small businesses. Talk about that program.
Could you raise your hand if you believe you're in a small firm? Okay. So everybody in this room except Steve Panzarino should have raised their hand. The Small Business Administration defines businesses of 1 to 500 as a small business. So 99.9% of architecture firms are small businesses. There's this well-kept secret that there's a Small Business Development Council, and there's one in every one of your communities, and they're usually in the universities. So for us in Tampa, St. Petersburg area, it's at the University of South Florida. There's one at UWC. There's FIU has one. And the Small Business Development Council receives money from the federal government and the SBA in particular. They will help you write business plans. They will sit down with your staff and do Myers-Briggs personality tests. They will help you find funding for growing your business. They will help you write proposals. They'll help you understand what you need to do to get any certifications to go after governmental work. They'll help you network. It's an amazing resource that's in every single community, and every single person virtually in this room would qualify for their services to become one of their clients. So I would highly encourage everybody to reach out just to see what is there. It's actually an unbelievable added benefit, kind of have your own consultation, free consultation. And by the way, everything is free. All of their services are free. So it's definitely a resource we could all tap into.
Have you used
Except
it
Steve.
for your organization?
I have. I've gone to several networking events. I've sat down with them and talked about when we thought we wanted to go after federal government work. We since decided that's not a sector we're interested in pursuing, but when we wanted to do that, they helped us go through the different certification programs, and there's other things that we plan to work with them on in the future.
So last topic I want to touch on is technology, and then I want to open up for some questions. Hopefully you all can engage in some questions. But the rapid pace and change of technology, we're seeing obviously the Strategic Council's got, we have a committee on technology now. We've talked about all these things changing and impacting our practices. What advice can you give the audience on how to address or adapt to the rapid change in technology, and how can they become better practitioners as the world flies by with technology?
I don't know if I could say advice. I mean, it is happening so quickly. We have to
Easy
all
for me
be
to ask the question.
Yeah, we have to all be conscious of the accelerated pace that technology is moving us at this moment, and I think it's pretty exciting. We have, for us, we have a whole group called Digital Innovations, and they focus on not only creating ways for us to do our jobs better, automating certain parts of the documentation so that you just put in parameters, and it kind of gives you some of the rote sheets that you have in the set. But also looking at opportunities for software that allows our clients to do things differently. An example, and I may be digressing a little bit, but we're currently working on a program for vertiports. Vertiports are the terminal buildings for eVTOLs, which are electric vertical takeoff and landing, these new electric Ubers in the sky. It's been earmarked that Florida will be the first state to have a network of these aircraft. And so we developed a program called eVTOLer that we are working with our client to use, and eVTOLer allows them to put in parameters to determine the length of travel, the number of flights that they anticipate, the recharge for the units, and all of those operational parameters. And it then tells us how many people per hour are going to be moving through the terminal building, which allows us to properly and right size the main hall so that people aren't overcrowded or underserved. And so, those programs become kind of priority programs that we use, but you have to find ways to embrace technology and use it to help enhance the way you work. There's no other way at this point. Although I know of firms that have been wildly successful who have just said technologies for the other folks, and we're going to hand draw, and we're going to sketch, and we're going to do all of the fundamentals that we were taught in school, or maybe we're taught in school, but that's what, that's the other option. And sometimes there's going to be a renaissance of that, I hope, in the future.
I would say for our size firm, medium size, even though the way you described it, we're also small. I would say that you have to be, you got to have a strategy. You have to be strategic in terms of the technologies that you want to purchase, that you want to bring into your office. There's so much out there that you can fall in love with, but probably half of it is not going to be any use to you. So I think you got to strategically think about your markets, your clients, the people you're collaborating with, your consultants, and also think of what do your projects really need, right? Being a heavy healthcare firm, 70 to 75% of our work is healthcare. We quickly identify what are the things that we need to be able to compete against the large firms across the country, and convey to them that we can do what they do at that level of intricacy and deliver a great value to these clients that we have. So I think that's how I would answer it, is think of what that strategy is and what you want to bring in. One of the things that we started to do now, and I know a lot of you have been doing it, we're a little bit behind in terms of Revit 360. We're seeing a lot of benefits in that level of instant coordination with our medical, with our MEP in our projects. And I think what is that clash detection? Where really are you going to stop? Are you going to take it all the way through the CA level of coordination in your projects so that you really start to bring that value to that client? And so you got to identify your client, what they expect, and then start to coach that into your staff. And to me, it kind of all goes back a little bit into mentorship. It has the ability, when you bring in this level of technology, you have the ability to teach a little deeper, to be a little bit more technical, and to potentially start to see things ahead of time, like we were mentioning earlier, that you may not really see in a level of clash detection that you did not anticipate or that you did not encounter on a two-line level of coordination. So I think without getting too deep into that, I think there's got to be a strategy, and you got to identify where do you want to go as a firm.
Out of curiosity, how many emerging professionals are in the audience? Do you mind raising your hand? Awesome, thank you. So I worked with Gould Evans in 2008 when we were just adopting Revit for the first time. And for those of you who know me, you know my whole spiel about Revit is the devil. But at that time, what also happened? 2008. We lost a whole generation of architects, right? So technology outpaced the profession. So fast forward, now we have generations of emerging professionals that are coming out of school learning different programs, but you know what? They're all just tools. And fundamentally, the power of the tool of our hand, being able to draw, being able to immediately communicate, that's what we do. We communicate, whether it's verbal, by hand, with whatever technology is in place. So we encourage our staff, for many reasons, had this epiphany that back in the day, you knew who was overwhelmed because you saw the stack of submittals in their inbox, right? You could see the work on the desk. You could see the drawings. With the computer, the problem is when you file things or when things are, tucked away, you don't have that immediacy and ability to respond and react. And so we encourage our staff to use the tools at their disposal, and as much as it may kill some trees, all of our staff keeps a binder and they handwrite a daily to-do list, because email is also the devil. And just because you know Revit does not mean you know how to build a building, does not mean you know how a building goes together.
Amen.
So the importance to hand draw a detail before you go into the computer and build it in 3D to us is critical. And I don't care if you're using, and we use all of these programs in our office, Revit, Lumion, SketchUp, Rhino, whatever it is you're using does not change the fact that you need to know fundamentally how a building goes together, or none of those programs matter at all.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the Revit thing, because I'm sure many of you have walked the job site and you show up and you're like, why is that little bit of gyp there next to that window? That window should have hit that wall cleanly. And you go back to the office and somebody will tell you, well, Revit didn't let me do it.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do
yeah.
you mean? What do you mean, Revit? So that's where, you know, the teaching of you know, the discipline of the profession is, we got to make sure that we maintain it, and it's our duty to teach those people Revit is not God here. You are, and you got to figure it out. If not, throw Revit out the door.
We had the opposite. We actually had a curtain pocket designed for a large stage curtain where the computer allowed you to draw this beautiful pocket that went 6 feet deep, that was fully, had drywall, the whole surface, only about 8 inches wide. No human being can build that. It can't be built. It went up 25 feet, and the contractor's like, come here. How do you expect me to do this? But the computer drew it perfectly. It's got the nail patterns, everything's in there.
Yeah.
So it's a danger. Technology can be a danger.
Yeah.
Well, I want to open up to questions for the audience. I want to make sure we have a chance to have some questions.
Our firm is 10 people, so I guess this is primarily for you, Bev. Community involvement of staff. You mentioned that you give your staff 40 days a year, 40 hours a year, or anyway, for whatever they're passionate about. So I'm assuming that you would condone community involvement of staff. And so my first question is, how do you provide for that? And the second question is, how do you encourage that? Because I have people on our staff that just don't seem interested in getting involved in community.
So it's an interesting conundrum because we do provide it and we have to actively encourage it. For some people it comes naturally. I find it kind of ironic because we are in such an activist time that a lot of people have a lot of opinions, but yet provided with this opportunity that we're giving you free time, not your weekends, not your evenings, we're not expecting you to, we're giving you time during the week to do this. So when we see it, we actively encourage it. We had one staff member that volunteers time or had volunteered time with women and children who have been sexually trafficked. And it was through her church. And so she wanted to go on a mission trip to Nepal to work with victims of trauma, basically. That there's a huge, basically, slave trade that was happening. So we not only gave her the 40 hours, we gave her probably 3 weeks because we went ahead and we even gave her a stipend to help support her trip. So for us, it's practicing empathy and compassion and seeing that those things are happening and then trying to encourage. We also try to find things that align with values that we see in our staff, and if we see those opportunities, present them to them. For us personally, Steve and I do some pro bono work. We typically do it for things like veterans. I'm also on the board of SPCA Tampa Bay. So we try to find those alignments and opportunities and then encourage them to come along.
I would add that as a large firm, we're not just the, for-profit, profit kind of activity, right? I mean, we do look at ignore the man behind the curtain. We do take our corporate responsibility of providing equitable global infrastructure is an important task of what we do. I mean, we participate in Engineers Without Borders, Water for All. I mean, all of these different nonprofits. We have engineers and architects who travel around, and very similar, we support their endeavors when the time comes for them to be away from the office for an extended period of time. And we do the same when it comes to veterans. We're very much behind our veterans and making sure that, when they're deployed, they're covered and they have a job when they get back and things like that. So we take that community involvement and engagement very seriously from the global perspective all the way down to the local level where we do community trash pickup and things like that. So,
one thing you do too is an idea for engagement for NEO employees. Part of their progression path, you can include that in the conversation. You can tell them, to become an associate, to become a senior associate, you have to demonstrate your involvement in the community. Create a parameter, and then now it's become part of their growth patterns. That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go and also say that, one of the worst things we can have is a young architect who's sitting at their workstation 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I mean, that's just not tenable, and they don't get any exposure to the outside world. I mean, I put up this morning, the Gropius quote. You have to be a participant in the broader society and be out there and doing things in order to learn and absorb how human activity occurs, so you can respond to it when you're designing solutions for those activities. So to have people who are just sitting at their desk working all day long, it's okay, you're gonna wear them out, but are they gonna ever become really strong, talented architects by doing that? So,
Peter, you have a...
Hi. I have more of a comment than a question, but I'd love to hear you elaborate on my comment. And that is that I was very fortunate in my early years as a young architect to be very well trained, very well mentored. So when I started my first firm, I, of course, immediately wanted to train my people, but I was not equally yoked with my partner, and he said, we could waste all this money training these people and then they leave. And my comment to that was, the only worst thing than not training, or than training your people and having them leave, is to not train them and have them stay.
Correct.
So I just would, this whole thing of especially young architects and small firms are usually afraid to invest too much money into the training of their people, and perhaps you could elaborate on why that's still very important.
I can start, and I think when you bring on talent, a lot of times they're going to look for new opportunities, like you mentioned. It's good to let them fly, and sometimes they come back, and sometimes they don't. But the ones that remain are really going to take your firm to the next level. And I've been fortunate; people have invested in me, and I think that we need to never forget those mentors that we have, because a lot of times you become an owner of a firm or you become a principal at a firm and you forget. And I always tell people, don't forget this moment. Right now, you and I, we're having a coaching moment. One day you need to pass this on. And it's not about you, it's about our profession, and it's about our office, and it's about our family here. And I think that a lot of times when you get that response, it's because that individual sometimes maybe has forgotten, or maybe he wasn't as fortunate enough as you were to have that great of a mentor or that took your career to the next level. So I think we need to invest and not think of what are we going to get back. I think we need to think of what are we doing for that person, because what they're going to see in you is, wow, I really want to work. I really want to, I want to own this firm one day. I want to be here for as long as my career goes.
So for us, we're building a pipeline. And Steve, I don't know, we've had probably, I mentioned we have 6 to 10 to 12 employees at any given time. We've been in business for 6 years. I think we've had 50 employees so far. So it's not that we're churning through them. We graduate a lot of interns, and for us it's kind of like mining for diamonds, and we have some diamonds right now that I'll be heartbroken if we lose them, but as Don reminded me the other day, Don Yoshino, the man of wisdom, great wisdom, you have to let them go, and if they come back, it's okay. And our clients don't see it. Our clients, we're still delivering the excellence in service. So even it's an investment, sure, but we're learning from them at the same time. So I can honestly say of all those people, we've learned something from every single one of them.
Becky,
Yeah.
you have a question?
Hi. So I'm really early in the field. So I got the opportunity when it came to mentorship. I started smack in the middle of the pandemic to a fully remote office. And now things are transitioning and it's changing. And throughout those changes, I've had several different types of mentors and different approaches. And I was introduced to this notion of old school style teaching, or, oh, they speak like that because that's kind of from their generation of architecture. So can y'all speak to the transition from this more old school style of teaching to the more modern work environment and the way that that's kind of being perceived? Because old school's fun, and I'd like to hear how you guys feel about it.
I don't know, she's talking about old school, she must be talking about new.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe Ignacio wants to answer that.
You know,
one.
the people
He's
over
the
here.
oldest.
I'm just a moderator. I'm not the oldest.
Yeah, fortunately.
If I may start, sorry, I'm
Go
not
ahead.
taking this one, but I can sympathize a little bit with that, because I remember thinking of this, you know, when I first got into the profession of real world working at a firm after I graduated, and it was this mentality of, you got to pay your dues, you know, be quiet, you know. That's not the right place for you. And I think eventually you have to identify what is it that you're comfortable with. What is that mentorship that you're seeking? And so maybe that's not the right place, maybe it is. For me, the key thing, and what I always tell people is, that mentor is maybe not in your office. And maybe it's outside your office. Maybe it's at your local AIA chapter. Maybe it's, who knows? But it's identifying the person that you familiarize with. Don't let anybody tell you, don't worry, he's a great mentor, that's how he does it. It may not be the right one for you. The right one for me wasn't the person who I was immediately working with. It was somebody a little bit further down the corridor, and I familiarized with that individual, and they took me to the next level. And so I think find who that person is for you. Old school, new school, to me it's irrelevant. It's what is the right fit for you. You know, we talk about the millennials and we talk about the new generations coming out of school and how they are, and a lot of times, you know, it's good or bad, but we need to adapt because we got to grow them anyway. So what you got to figure out is who is that right individual for you that's going to reciprocate the way you want your career to go.
So back in my day, and as I'm sitting here, I had to start with a back in my day story, because when I was young and I started as an intern architect, I worked in an old house was the office, and so various rooms, an old bedroom would be a studio where 3 or 4 people would sit, and I was assigned to this one area with 2 other guys. And the only way I got through the day is by the crack in the window that was open about that much. They chain smoked the entire day. There was a cloud of cigarette smoke, and I had to kind of sit, because I'm not a smoker, I had to sit down below just so I can survive the day. So when they say old school, not everything that has come before us is like the best way to do things. So I think for you, I would say never be bashful or afraid to challenge the status quo. Right? Your ideas, your new experience in this profession is as valid as somebody who's been there for 45 years. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, wait a minute, I have a different idea, I have a better idea, I think I can do this differently. Because you'd be surprised, I mean, most of us are all about innovation, and we're always looking for a way to improve our processes or the way we go about, you know, design or the solutions we come up with. So I just say don't hold back, and don't be fearful of asking the right questions and challenging people who think they already know better than you.
Peter, you have a question?
Okay. Hi. Hi, Bev. This one's kind of for you because I'm like a micro firm, and my husband is like a micro firm. My firm is 4 people, 2 of those are admin. So this going back to kind of the post-pandemic how we bring people back into the office. I have one staff member who is admin, and, you know, I went to sit down with her and say, you know, hey, it's time to come back to the office. You know, this is where you're needed. And I was confronted with what I completely did not expect, which was her whole home life situation had completely changed in the time. And, you know, so she had really gone into this caretaker role with her parents and all this stuff. And so my first is, how did any of you, but especially Bev in the small context, address those kinds of changing needs? I mean, some of it's flexibility, but some of it is more than that. Like, no, I can't come back at all. What do you do? And then two, so my husband's firm, again, also micro, and he started his firm with wanting to be very progressive, you know, and so he right off the bat started out with, like, in his handbook, a very progressive maternity leave, long-term paid, and right now he's going through the pains of that and you know, having trouble hiring and all of that kind of stuff. So how do you as a small firm provision for things like sending one of your employees to Nepal for 3 weeks?
I work a lot of hours. We had it happen too. We had two people that were part of the Great Resignation. One had had a baby just a year before the pandemic and realized that separation anxiety and daycare was going to be more, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, just as you mentioned. And it's not been easy now with staffing and employment being the way it is, finding good, talented people to come in, especially people with soft skills. Oh my gosh, organization, communication, you know, write things down. That's been difficult. So I don't have the answer yet. I think we need to do a better job as small business owners and of not, architecture's weird. Like, we're such fierce competitors. Like, we're so scared to share information. And I think we need to be more consortium minded. Like, we could get into AI and share those resources and come together. I know Carlos had built his firm and had several architectural practices that were adjacent to each other and sharing resources. I think we need to do a better job of that and hold each other up. If there was an opportunity to work share across, you know, one firm may be slow, one may not be, and having that network. But again, building trust and good partnerships. Maybe it's not just consultants or large firms. Maybe it's building a consortium among ourselves and sharing work that way. But I agree with you. We're in the same boat and trying to find the right answer. We're right there with you.
Hi, my name is Steve Polio, and I'm with a firm that was actually created in 1951, and I've been there for 27 years. But I wanted to respond to the mentoring. I am part of that old school. What we try to do is we got a diverse group of a team, and I was trained initially, to give you an idea, when we first started out, part of your job was cleaning the parallel bars, running prints, which is pretty dated pretty much now. But what we do is when the young people come through the office, they usually stop at my desk, and my desk is the one that's cluttered with all the hand drawings. But the one thing, and I told this story in a presentation we gave the other day, is when they come in, they stare down and look at the corner of my desk, and there's my electric eraser. And I can't believe how amazed they are. But my point I want to get to is that I think as mentors, and I know that she's probably run into it, or some people have, the mentors, we have to have an open mind, and we can't be focused and resist change. I think that's what happens. We think our way is that way. But I think one of the things that, in my personal case, comes into play, I have sons that are 40, I have another son that's 20, and I have grandkids. And I would say mentoring is very much like parenting and taking the attitude of pay it forward type thing. And I realized that you got to where you are because somebody mentored you. So taking on that task, what we do is we're seeing that a lot of the students coming out are high in technology, but they're not well versed in construction. And to be quite honest, my own personal experience was, as these new people are coming on, I'm looking around at my desk saying, am I on the way to the pasture? Because I'm at the age I'm not going to sit down and do CAD, and I'm definitely not even know what the heck we're talking about Revit. So what we see happening is when we talk about reverse mentoring, they're teaching me those programs and trying to understand how I can work within them. And at the same time, I'm sketching the details, showing them how to put the building together. And then I think another part of that sometimes contract administration is really a pain. It pulls on production, pulls on our creative part of our office, but it's very key that they go out there and see how the parts and pieces are being built, because then they understand that what they're drawing on the computer is not simply a line. That line means something, and I think that's a value that, I know sometimes it's hard because we see that we've got that production or that project that's got to get out, it's got to get drawn. But I think the key to a lot of this is having the contract administration, so literally you can see how it goes together. That was just
Very well said.
I think we have time for one more? Okay.
Hey guys, great presentation. So Beverly, your firm and my firm, we have a lot of the same policies. But one thing that I'm struggling, I've dangled every carrot I can to get my guys to go get licensed. And they are in a holding pattern. Whether they want to, they don't have the time or are not taking the time to go test. We've offered, we're going to pay for your test, so that's not in the way. We'll buy study guides, just send us the link to it, we'll get them for you. Pay your AI dues so you can go do study groups, like everything, trying to take every hurdle away for them to go get their license. So I guess my question is what are all of you guys, not only the small firms, but the big firms, what are y'all doing to dangle the carrot or encouraging your employees to go get their license?
I can go.
Do you mind?
Go ahead.
So just quickly, one of the things we did recently is it's risk and fear tolerance. Just go take an exam. I will pay you to go flunk the first exam. Just go take one. Because then you experience it and you get over the fear of taking it. So that was number one. Number two, recently, one of our staff members, we give her every other Monday off, and she's studying for the exams on that day. So she has no avenue to say, I don't have time or I can't make time. So she's now getting ready to take her second exam. But I think doing, just being creative, like you said, you're dangling carrots, but sitting down with each person, as Steve said, and trying to find what's right for them.
Yeah, we, at our associate level, so the way that we're structured is associate principals. At our associate level, we have tasked some of them to be in charge of that group. And the reason why we did that is in the past, we had our principals, one of our principals kind of helping at that level. And what we find is that it helps for them to see a contemporary, for them to see somebody they can relate to, somebody that just passed that exam. Because like she said, is that sometimes they're afraid of that monster. And we all probably were at one point. And just go and take it, schedule it. It's like, oh, I'm studying. When are you taking it? Oh, I'm studying. No, sign up, take it. And I think it's maybe finding, and again, we have that resource in the office, but maybe you may have to find it outside the office. Maybe at the local chapter, there's the YAF, the Young Architects Forum, that maybe they can go to and say, look, and maybe you go with them. Look, I'll go with you to the first meeting. Let's go and see what other people are doing to overcome this fear, to overcome maybe the time constraint, or is it maybe let's assign maybe Fridays we stop at noon and you study the rest of the day and you continue through the weekend. But maybe it's helping them build that culture that maybe they forgot from college of the ability to study, that discipline to study for this exam. But I think maybe finding that contemporary, somebody that they can relate to, they just faced it, they passed, what did you do?
I start the conversation with back in the day. No, it really, I start by just basically kind of laying it out and saying, you know, and you understand you went to all of these years of architecture school, but you cannot call yourself an architect by law until you get licensed. And so do you want to throw all of that effort and hard work away by not going for the last bit of what you need to do to call yourself an architect? And once you get that license, other than a felony, you could stay an architect for the rest of your life, right? That's an accomplishment that no one can take away from you. So I try to at least, paint a picture that, that's what's going to give you kind of the last key to unlock your career. And if you don't do that, you have just determined a line in the sand as of today. This is where I'm going to be 20, 30 years from now. So I hope that sometimes that resonates. And then, seeing a contemporary who gets their license and then is given new responsibilities, all of a sudden they're being brought into, bigger challenges, meeting it with the client directly, given the responsibility of a project. It's, hopefully that little edge of competition kind of inspires them to keep up and go for that last thing. But same as everyone, we're very supportive. I mean, we want to make sure that everybody who wants to be an architect can become an architect and, go through the final steps to get there.
Well, I see the time has been cut. I'm getting the signal. So thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.